Hello and welcome to Inside the Third Space. In each episode, we dwell into the concept of being in the third space through the unique perspectives of different individuals, uncovering their insights, experiences, and identity. I'm Agnita Amarnath, Education Developer Nexus, Faculty of Science at UNSW Sydney. To me, the third space refers to a conceptual space where people come together to work on educational problems without having a divide between job titles and roles. I personally believe third space fosters collaboration and innovation that improves student learning experience and institutional change. Today, I'm joined by Samadhi Driscoll. She's the Nexus Program Lead, PVC Education at UNSW Sydney. Thanks for joining us, Samadhi.
Thank you.
So to start with, can you tell us a bit about what you do in your role and how long have you been at UNSW?
Oh, sure. Okay. So in my current role as Nexus Program Lead, I look after, the operations side of Nexus. So that's everything from the planning, reporting, also cultivating wherever possible culture and idea, cross-faculty ideas, so setting up events. So I don't know how to describe my role, to tell you the truth.
Because you do so many amazing things.
And it's evolved since I started.
Oh, yeah.
As
true.
you all know, because you were part of the journey with me. As the programs evolved, my roles evolved.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the other key part of my role is talking to other programs who want to work with Nexus. Mm-hmm. So in some ways, I'm one of the conduits to be able to work with Nexus. So lots of different programs around the university will come and pitch their ideas and want to work and play with Nexus, which is really interesting, but it makes it really busy because we're a very large university.
That's true. And looks like you wear several hats.
Yes.
Yeah. So I would love to hear about your career journey. How did you find your way into this role?
I started my journey so I have a double degree in education and psychology. Mm-hmm. Education was my passion, but I also had a great interest in psychology. And just because of caring responsibilities, I really wanted to go down the education path, but life just threw me into community mental health. Mm-hmm. So I worked in that space for some time, loved it, but had the opportunity to move into the education of mental health and community mental health, which led me to facilitating a vet and then later on in higher education. Mm-hmm. I was maybe a little bit critical of the learning materials to my superiors and very wisely they turned around and said to me, well, you do it then. And so that started my journey as a learning designer, and it just started with a few redesigns and a bit of assessment tweaking to going from end to end of both vocational and higher education courses. And I really loved that journey, but it was very unstable work. Mm-hmm. And so I got the opportunity to start to write bespoke training for the police force, mm-hmm. New South Wales Police. And that role led me to strategy, which was really interesting because actually learning design and strategy have a lot of things in common. In learning design, you're thinking about learning outcomes. In strategy, you're thinking about problems and opportunities, but actually the process of stakeholder engagement, thinking through components, the journey, scaffolding, all these sorts of things are very present in both learning design and strategy. So I think a lot of learning designers end up really good strategists.
Wow.
Yeah, it's true.
That's so interesting.
And it's through that strategy work that I ended up at UNSW. I did a lot of different roles, but I came to UNSW to develop an academic development program. So that's that learning design hat mm-hmm. for researchers to work with external partners. And I think I landed this current role mm-hmm. because a lot of the strategy and the learning design work involved project management. Mm-hmm. I had many stakeholders to consult. I got good at project management, but I wouldn't call myself a project manager. And I think that some of the education leadership at UNSW, it would not be a secret to say that not all of them love project managers. But Nexus needed a project manager. So I think when my application came in front of the people who were setting up Nexus, they said, oh, perfect, she's got the education side, but she's also got the project management side, and we think that will really work for this program. So even though my role is not technically a third space role, I think I got my role because of my background in education and that I straddle both worlds.
That's very interesting because I can resonate how my job title is education developer, but I dived into project management and I do a bit of everything. So it resonates so well. How did your path lead you to become a third space professional, and how does that idea of third space connect with the work you're doing right now?
So I only really started to identify as a third space professional at the beginning of my journey with UNSW. So there was an existing program. I was employed to improve that program, but it became very apparent that program wasn't meeting our stakeholders' needs. So then what followed was actually doing a really in-depth research study, looking at worldwide trends, connecting with other universities who were playing in that space too, to develop this comprehensive academic development program. And so it was very different to what I was employed to do. And I started connecting with other people around the world, and all of them were academics. No one else was a professional staff member like me. And it was interesting, they gave me insights, but I gave them insights because of my role, my experience as a professional outside of the higher education sector. And I remember just sharing those challenges with somebody else in a similar role, actually in science. And she sent me a paper on the third space. I'm like, this is me. I'm doing academic-like work, but I'm a professional staff member. But I'm also happy to be that. That's what I want to be. I'm not a wannabe academic. I actually really genuinely love that space. I don't believe you could do my role and not have a background in education, because you're always assessing. People are coming to you with needs in education, and you couldn't assess that unless you understand education and pedagogy and the experience of the educator and the experience of the student. You could learn it. A project manager who was really earnest might learn that world, but it's greatly benefited me to have walked that walk and be able to talk, and also to be able to assess.
And also, like, you being so passionate about education, that always helps when you're in that role. Yes.
100%.
That passion helps.
Yeah. I really strongly believe in higher education and university and the power of university. I'm a great believer in it. And its role in society. But I also think it has an agility problem. It is not very quick to adapt to the changing needs of the world around us. And for that reason, it's threatened. I genuinely believe that we have a great threat to higher education, and I want to see it survive. But the current paradigm of academia is not quick to adapt. The third space professional has this incredibly, I think, privileged space to be able to move and adapt in a much more agile way. And I genuinely believe that third space professionals are not the only answer, but a critical part of keeping universities sustainable and having longevity and staying relevant to the needs of society. That's why I'm really proud to be a third space professional, and why I think we deeply need to cultivate this culture in higher education.
And like the gap, the bridge that connects both the worlds, kind of.
Exactly.
Yes. What kind of challenges or pain points have you come across while working in the third space?
Sure. I've got two probably biggest pain points. The most apparent one that jumps to mind is I've had the privilege of working in many sectors, so community, government and corporate. And this is the only sector where I was made to, at times, feel like I wasn't as valuable in a meeting. And I hadn't really come across that in the same way in other institutions. I was part of the team, whereas I've experienced, especially as I might have taken on greater leadership roles, that I can be in a meeting and I can suggest something and nobody hears me. And then an academic will suggest the exact same idea in the exact same meeting and it's heard. Now, I'm really fortunate. I've worked with fantastic academic leaders and I've made them aware of these challenges, and they always bring me up. And so now that they're aware, when we're in meetings together, they'll always throw to me, or they'll make sure that I'm heard. But I wish we were in a world where that didn't need to happen, that there wasn't this us and them, or that one role in our institution is prized over another role. So that's one challenge that I think I used to face regularly, I think not as much now. The second one, especially I think where I'm at the moment in my career and life, is that there's no career path. And so a huge challenge for me with the third space is that in academia, developing your expertise and developing your impact in your area is cultivated, and it's cultivated by the academic promotions framework. Professional staff don't have that same pathway to be able to cultivate and be motivated to cultivate our expertise to the next level. So I think there are two big challenges about working in this space, and I think it will create barriers, we'll lose talent. In the end, the institution will lose talent unless it can provide that same sort of affordance that academics get for people to grow and become better and become experts and to cultivate expertise in the same way.
Yeah, you've touched in two major challenges, which I think everyone who's in the third space will resonate. So with your first challenge of saying about the value, do you think, so are you saying it is about the visibility?
Yeah, definitely. I think that even having third space professionals as active members of the university community is actually quite new.
Mm-hmm.
It's still a concept that even, through the Nexus program, we've had people come from other universities and they've never worked with an ed dev before. In fact, they don't even know what that term really is. So that's interesting, and that is a sign of maybe a new wave and a new way of being and working. So it maybe doesn't have visibility, but I think even at times where it does have visibility, it's prizing that a certain role type because of their qualifications or their role, that it's more valuable. At times it would appear that that's valued more than the expertise that a professional third space member might bring to the room.
So as we spoke about the challenges now, in your view, what are the key things that the third space professionals should focus on right now?
I think third space professionals should focus on coming together and identifying common issues as a way to be able to combat those common issues together. I also believe that we should focus on being proud of our profession, because if we actually provide something really valuable to the institution that I don't think a purely professional role can do and a purely academic role. I actually believe there is a real function for third space. And the more value we see in ourselves and can identify in ourselves, and the prouder we are of our profession, the more we'll emanate that out. And I think that's the first step to rebalancing what I feel is an imbalance in terms of what's valued in the institution. So in many ways, we need to know why we're valuable to be able to share that with the rest of the community. I love what Mike Vogel said in an interview, that it's our diversity that makes us valuable to the institution. He was referring to Nexus, but he was referring to the fact that there's many roles from many different faculties, and that's incredibly powerful.
That was exactly what I was going with the next question, which was, would you think it is hard because there are so many roles in third space?
Yeah, I think that is a challenge, because sometimes when you're talking to an academic about, say, working with an ed dev, they're thinking about one interaction, often from 2 years ago, with someone with a specific skill set, and also probably with some boundaries on their ability to do various activities, whether that be from their manager or from their skill set. So having this generic term, ed dev, to cover so many different functions does lend to a identity problem, I think. So yeah, I do agree. I don't completely agree with the term ed dev, if I'm completely honest, because I identified as a learning designer and I see that as a creative process. Developing is another process that I probably would have not been very good at. Maybe I would. I don't know. I used to be good at computers. And so, yeah, I was curious when I came to UNSW, and that was a blanket term for anyone working in the education space. Maybe we need to be more nuanced in how we describe ourselves.
Yeah, and just that third space is not just education developers.
No.
Yeah, because even 1.5 years into this role, I'll still be asked, what do you do as an education developer, against education technologist or education technology coordinator or whatever that is. So it's always too many roles, but it's good that we have that willingness that they want to learn what our roles are. So sometimes I'll be like, okay, I can explain to people when they ask me what, rather than just thinking I would do X, Y, and Z.
Absolutely, I agree. And also, I don't just identify in terms of education, because I've participated, led research projects. They were action-based research projects in community. They were research projects as part of the police force and other institutions. I've done data analysis. So a lot of the skills that I bring and utilise in my role now are both education and research. So I feel third space in the sense that I'm utilising skills that you normally associate with an academic, but I'm not an academic. And I use them in my work all the time.
So finally, what advice would you give to anyone interested in exploring a third space role or to those already working within it?
Be proactive about taking opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
I've really seen in our Nexus education developer community that we call them NED devs.
Mm-hmm.
That's our affectionate term for Nexus education developers. They've just gone out and jumped in the deep end with projects that maybe people would have said, oh, that's not your role, that's an academics or whatever. Maybe you're dancing on the edge of the boundaries of your role. And they've done great things. And when they've done great things, people are like, oh, I didn't know ed devs could do that. I didn't know you had that skill set. So they're really kind of dazzling and shining a light on all the beautiful things we can do. But they would only do that by kind of stretching out of their role, making connections a little bit outside of the scope. So I'm not saying don't do your job role, don't get fired, but kind of dancing on the edge of your role to be engaged in different opportunities. And, you might try for an opportunity, you might get a no, but you might get a yes, and that might open doors.
Yeah, so keep knocking doors.
Yeah.
Thank you, Samadhi, for joining us and for sharing your insights. It has really been enlightening. To our listeners, thank you for listening to Inside the Third Space. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring the third space. This episode of Inside the Third Space was presented by me, Agnita Amarnath. Our editor is Morgan Harris and our producer is Neil Lawrence. We were joined today by our guest Samadhi Driscoll.